the oil company that spoiled the sea. BP's Deepwater Horizon disaster. In the vast, endless expanse of our blue planet, 71% of which is covered by the ocean, lurked a tale of hubris, greed, and black gold. A catastrophe was waiting, one might say with a hint of theatrical flair. But this isn't the plot of a high-budget Hollywood thriller. Oh no, this was reality. And for BP, it was a ticket to infamy. Oil. The black gold that turned desert lands into luxurious metropolises, that made moguls out of mere businessmen. And it was the resource that led BP into the treacherous deep-sea territories. But let's take a moment here. Deepwater Horizon wasn't just some rusted, clanging metal structure stuck out in the middle of the sea. No, this was a state-of-the-art drilling rig, a symbol of modern engineering might. Its purpose: to quench our insatiable thirst for energy, for development, for, well, more. BP, or British Petroleum, a British company, once known as the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, drilled its way through Persia in the early 1900s. A titan in the oil world had pitched this as the future of oil exploration, always emphasizing their supposed rigorous safety standards. Safety first, they'd cry out in boardrooms. In terms of the global marketplace, by 2010, BP's stature was monumental. Their moment of triumph wasn't just about having more barrels of oil to their name. No, it was the deals, the mergers, the not-so-subtle corporate dance-offs that positioned BP among the world's oil aristocracy. Their valuation and production figures were dancing cheek to cheek with titans like ExxonMobil and Shell. Now, that's no small feat, especially in an industry where competition is as thick as the crude they drill. While their strategies were undeniably effective, they were also, at times, borderline audacious. BP's aspirations weren't just to tap into new oil reserves, but to redefine the very boundaries of offshore drilling. And boy, did they drill deep, literally and metaphorically, before the tales of corporate recklessness stole the headlines. The Gulf of Mexico had been a bustling hub of life and commerce, a shimmering, vast expanse where dolphins danced and fishermen earned their keep. But there's always more than meets the eye. Beneath the glitz and glamour of BP's glimmering headquarters and sunlit helipads, the company's vision seemed a tad blurry. As with any good thriller, where the protagonist isn't all they seem, BP had its secrets. And oh boy, were they about to spill. Literally. To put the human touch on this saga, consider this. Jose, a third-generation fisherman, boasting tales of his grandfather's first catch, had to watch oil-covered fish get tangled in his net. Then there's Linda, the vivacious owner of a coastal B&B, who started seeing more cancellations than sunrises, as tourists turned their back on the darkest beaches. And let's not forget Dr. Samantha Green, a passionate marine biologist who could have written a gut-wrenching, tear-jerking memoir on the environmental apocalypse she witnessed. Whispers began to emerge, not from high-rise boardrooms or official briefings, but from the muddy boots and grease-stained overalls of workers on the front line. As it turns out, the Deepwater Horizon rig, BP's crown jewel, might not have been the paragon of safety and engineering they advertised. Suspicion? Maybe. Then came the day that changed everything. April 20th, 2010. An explosion not of festive fireworks, but of fire and fury. The Deepwater Horizon rig, BP's so-called marvel, was engulfed in flames, leading to the tragic loss of 11 lives. Now, While the world watched the smoke rise, questions too began to surface. As 4.9 million barrels of oil, yes, you heard that right, leaked into the Gulf of Mexico over an agonizing 87 days, the scale of negligence became starkly evident. This wasn't just a mishap. It was a catastrophic failure at multiple levels. Reports uncovered that the blowout preventer, a fail-safe device, ironically, had failed. Internal documents and frantic emails painted a picture of chaos, with engineers sounding alarms that were, tragically, ignored. In one particular memo dated weeks before the disaster, an engineer referred to the rig's operation as a nightmare well. Behind the technical jargon and graphs, a simple narrative emerged. BP, in its rush for profits, had compromised on safety. Not intentionally, perhaps, but with a level of negligence that begged belief. Post-disaster, the legal wrangling began in earnest. Lawsuits flooded in, not just from disgruntled fishermen, but from states, environmental agencies, and even shareholders who were watching their BP stock go down faster than a lead balloon. Drowning in legal paperwork took on a whole new meaning. Local businesses found themselves in free fall. Fishing, tourism, hospitality, all major players in the Gulf's economy were thrown into chaos. Suddenly, that seafood platter wasn't just more expensive. It came with a side of environmental guilt. Within BP, the internal dynamics shifted dramatically. There was a palpable air of tension. A sea change from the once cocky energy giant to a corporation walking on eggshells. Employees who once wore the BP logo with pride now faced pointed questions at dinner parties. Senior executives, including CEO Tony Hayward, had to walk the plank. Hayward's infamous "I'd like my life back" comment only added fuel to an already raging fire. $18.7 billion was just the starting line in the money marathon BP had to sprint. In total, BP set aside a whopping $65 billion to cover fines, settlements, and cleanup costs. Criminal charges? You bet. BP pled guilty to 11 counts of misconduct or neglect of sheep officers, 1 count of obstruction of Congress, and environmental violations aplenty. While no one from BP got a cozy prison cell, they did receive a 5-year probation. A slap on the wrist, perhaps. But then again, how do you jail an entire corporation? BP's reputation, once shimmering with the sheen of black gold, was now stained with it. People weren't merely upset, they were livid. Protests, boycotts, and campaigns against BP became as frequent as morning coffee. Legislation came thundering down. Stricter regulations on offshore drilling, better safety protocols, and more stringent environmental checks became the new normal. Oil companies now had more hoops to jump through than a circus tiger. BP appeared as apologetic as a cat caught knocking over a vase. The company committed $20 billion to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill trust, ensuring compensation for those affected. Sure, it's easier to write checks when you're an oil giant. Their most ambitious step towards redemption was the PR-led rebranding effort, showcased by the Beyond Petroleum campaign. Suddenly, BP began to divest from the most polluting of its assets and started investing in renewable energy. Wind farms, solar energy, and biofuels became the company's new best friends. It's crucial to remember that some scars don't fade. The environment, economies, and countless lives affected by the disaster will carry its imprints forever. It's a lesson etched in oil and pain, reminding humanity of the cost of negligence and the imperative need for vigilance. With the winds of change blowing, the energy sector began to shift. BP's commitment to reducing its carbon footprint nudged other industry titans, like ExxonMobil and Chevron, to take similar pledges. The Green Revolution was no longer in the realm of dreams. It was becoming a reality. And what about the Gulf of Mexico? Nature, with its remarkable resilience, began healing, while the scars of the disaster will linger for decades. Signs of recovery are evident. The once oil-drenched shores now teem with life, and the waters, while holding the memories of the spill, shimmer with hope. In the grand tapestry of corporate history, the Deepwater Horizon disaster will always be a dark stain. While it may never fully wash away the sins of its past, nature has taught us that when it is wrong, it always collects its dues.